The wind blows where it wishes, and you can hear the sound of it, but cannot tell where it comes from or where it goes. So is everyone who is born of the Spirit. Okay, we could start. I once again find myself unqualified to give this talk. That seems to happen a lot lately. And when I say it won't be good, and then everyone says, oh, it's going to be good, and then, so I don't want to say it. Because it probably won't be good, so then I don't know what to say now, so it's all, it sets up strange. The first thing I want to talk about is Pentecost again. Pentecost. It's really important, Pentecost, and I've talked about it a lot of times now, but still some people are saying I don't really know what it is. So if you don't know what it is, read it. It's in Acts of the Apostles, and it's when Christianity was born. Up until then, they were sure they were just Jews, and they were just waiting for everyone to get that Jesus was the Messiah. And it's at Pentecost when a new religion was born, and they found themselves transcending the religion of their ancestors and the religion they'd been deeply embedded in up until that very moment. So you have to think these people were incredibly devout. It's hard to explain now because you don't find people as devout now typically. So these people were deeply, deeply religious and deeply embedded in the Judaic tradition. And something happened at Pentecost that had them transcend their entire way of worship, their entire way of being spiritual. Jesus had planted the words. A lot of it had been planted in them, but the reality of it, the cosmic leap in consciousness that the disciples went through, that happened at Pentecost. And I think it's interesting that it was preceded by 40 days of prayer, right? So Jesus raises from the dead, and then he ascends, and he says, if I don't leave, it would be to your harm, or if I leave, it's to your benefit, because if I leave, the Holy Spirit will come. So they're clinging to Jesus, the form, and the form leaves. The form leaves. The way it's going to look leaves. Maybe they tried to walk like him, or Jesus likes this, so I'll like this. Maybe they, since he acted a certain way, they started acting that way, right? Maybe they tried to try to act their way into it or copy their way into it, which is death to the spiritual life, which I learned really quickly when I tried to be like Clyde. And Clyde, I'm on fire too in a certain way, but Clyde was on fire in his own way. And whenever I tried to be like him, it didn't work out. Clyde was pretty harsh. He had a way of being very harsh. And with joy, though, just with joy, but he was really harsh. And he would do it right in front of people. He'd call you out in front of people. But it never felt mean, but it was harsh. The things he said were like, whoa, I'd whisper that to somebody, man. So I tried to be like him, and everyone would just cry. I realized, okay, I can't be Clyde. That's not going to work. It's not going to work being like him. He has a whole thing about him that he can move and be a certain way, and I can't move and be like that. And so the form had to go. So the form goes, then he says the Holy Spirit will come, and they're all praying together for hours a day, right? Like if there's nothing they have to be doing, they're in prayer. And I think that that if God's trying to get you anywhere, don't think of it as all your sin has to stop first. I wouldn't think of it that way. I think if Christians are listening, of course we don't want to sin. Nobody here wants to sin. But you can't think you'll master all your behavior first, and then you'll enter into the light. If you think that way, it's a reversal of Pentecost. That's a reversal of Jesus' teachings. It's the exact opposite. I think all God's trying to do, this is what is becoming more and more clear to me, as I enter the higher stages again, genuinely as a Christian, in the Christian way, which you're going to get sick of me hearing me say it, but which is now so personal. I entered the light before, but it was not personal. It was not someone, it was the force. It was the force. And now it's personal and it's very different. It's tender and vulnerable, I would say also. It's a different entrance through Christ and through Christianity. It's a different entrance and a different end. It's so personal. But it would be a mistake to think you have to get rid of all your sin first before you could enter the light. That's not how Christianity works at all. What I think what they're trying to do is, what I wanted to ask everyone tonight, it occurred to me to ask, what wouldn't you give up for the light right now? What wouldn't you walk away from for the light, for Christ? And you have to be able to say nothing. And it's weird if you're a parent. I have to be able to say, yes, I'd walk away from my daughter and my wife, but they're never going to have me walk away from them. But I absolutely must say yes. And I have to be able to mean that. So think right now, what wouldn't you give up? What idols do you keep? I was thinking, I don't know why this occurred to me today like 4 different times, but in the old building where we were, there was a counselor there who I was sort of friends with. And I liked him, kind of. Very, very not like me at all, so that's neat. But on his door, he had all these cool signs people could read while they're waiting for their session, I guess. And one of them sounded like a woman. This woman said, "Everyone asks me how I could have a perfectly clean home, 3 kids, and a career. And the answer is mental illness. That's how." So that always struck me. It always struck me because we get addicted. It doesn't, it could be a pair of pants for somebody. It could be their hair. That could be enough to stop someone. What wouldn't you give up? And that's the same thing as asking, what are your idols? What are your idols? What are your idols? And what I think that God's really doing through the night and through we're going to call it the paranight, for the people that end up with the qualities of the night who don't go through the night, because we're seeing this happen also. But what is it really leading to? All it's leading to is a freedom of spirit sufficient that your heart and mind is more interested in God than the life you're living. That's what it is. I think this is it. Because think about it. All Christianity cares about, they don't care about your karma. They don't care if you have good or bad karma. They don't, just as a paradigm, they don't care. They don't care if you're really skilled and gifted or not skilled and gifted. They don't really care about any of that. Christianity doesn't seem to care at all about that. It is, will you say yes to God? That's all. This is what God cares about. Will you say yes? And how deep does that yes go? How deeply does it go? I don't talk about I'm not going to talk about my experience, but I'll just say one little thing. Right now, because they've healed me and brought me to some higher stages, my yes goes deep enough that I break out in a sweat when I say yes. Because immediately I'm met with fear and a power that rushes through and begins a purification that makes me sweat. That didn't happen before, now it's happening now. It's how deep does your yes go? Because if you think about it, for real, when you close your eyes, there's nothing between you and God. There's just that yes, or there's just that no. And that is all there is. It's not as if you've got to, like we talk about these stages, but they're not they're all present, you know? It's holographic in a way. All those stages are there now. So when you close your eyes, if your yes is yes, God enters. And it's just that. And it's just that. And we are, in so many ways, wrapped up in our lives in ways that are very idolatrous. And it's funny because what are you going to leave? I mean, you're still going to go to work. You're probably still going to do your hair, I would guess. I mean, I don't know if very much changes from the outside. I don't know. I mean, it might. What I'm trying to say is, if you're a person with responsibilities in this world, I don't know if much of that would change. I'm not leaving my family. I'm not even leaving my little puppy. I'm not going. But is that idolatry? Can I leave without leaving? Sometimes when you go into the higher dimensions, it feels like you're leaving this world completely. And many people can't go because they're afraid of leaving their loved ones. This is what we're talking about. It's a radical departure from our present state of consciousness. And it might lead to a lot of differences. It might, I know like my wife, she's a doer. She's the doing type, okay? So her name's Mary, but more Martha. And she is the doing type. But over the years, our house is clean, but it's not perfect anymore. And it used to have to be perfect. It used to have to be exactly perfect, and she couldn't rest until it was perfect. And this is mental illness. I mean, it's subtle. It's spiritual sickness. It's probably not diagnosable. But if you're talking about sainthood, it's a big problem because it's a kind of idolatry. So she's still a doer and still the kind that keeps everything cleaned up, and not really try to help too to make it not all hers, because I don't notice stuff. Like if it's a mess for me, I don't know. I don't know if it's, she said, she'll clean something and change something. I'll say, did you notice? And I'll say, I didn't. And she'll say, how can you not know? How do you not know? And I don't know, but I just don't notice. And it slowly gets, it's like every day it's like watching the grass grow. Now that you mention it, yes, the grass is long. But it doesn't look long. It just looks a little different than yesterday. And every day flows and you forget. So we're different that way. She's more of the doer type. But as she has softened spiritually, it's less. It's not a need. She used to need it to be in order. And that's a form of control. That's a form. So is being messy all that. There's another way of, the other end of the spectrum is the other end of the spectrum. It's a mess. The point I'm trying to make is the entire way that you are living and being, it's going to change from Pentecost. And that's where God is leading us, is to Pentecost. That's where God is taking us. Pentecost. That's where. It's and don't think, what you can't think, I'm so sinful still though. I mean, my neighbor bugs me. I'm bugged by people. I'm mad at my spouse. I'm regretful for the way I used to live. Whatever you would think right now could stop you. It really can't. It's the degree to which you're attached to those things that could stop you. It's not so much the things themselves. So there's this freedom of spirit that God is leading everyone to. And it's like, I thought when I came out of the night, my night was so grueling. And I remember being so disappointed when I got all the way done and I thought, this is it? This is only how healed I am? I mean, I thought, my God, that was a lot of work. And if this is all I've come to freedom with, dang, it was a little depressing. But what I didn't get is what really got healed were the things that were keeping me from going to the light. I wouldn't say all the way healed, but it's happening. The ascent has now begun. So I was disappointed because I had the thinking wrong. I thought, geez, really, I'm still just, name your list. I'm a bum, and that's really it. But no, something else though. I can go. I can go. I can leave this world, and I can go. And there's flights of it, Teresa talks about these flights of it, and that happens. But then there's also this more like radical, permanent, I'm going. And that's, the third stage of prayer, Teresa of Avila, the one where everything gets ordered and you could live in that nice ordered life forever and stay asleep your whole life. You can go to work, you can manage your home, just generally speaking, you can take care of everything. And she said that is the dangerous stage for people because they go to sleep in that stage. It's a good life God's given you. It's a good life. But it's sleepy. It's not awake. It's not wild. You're certainly predictable. One of the things I thought is, how predictable are you? A person born of the Spirit is not all that predictable. How predictable are you? How addicted to order are you? How addicted to routine are you? A person born of the Spirit is not governed by routine. They're not. I don't know how it would look for everyone. I don't want to get too give up your routines. I don't mean that. I just mean it's the idolatry behind it. It's the self-will behind it all that's killing it. And so what wouldn't you walk away from? What wouldn't you walk away from? What do you need in your life that isn't God, that you need? And who cares about that thing? So Pentecost is where we're going. That's where we're going. And you're not healed all the way before you go. It enacts and effects a radical healing in you. And I'm using Pentecost very loosely now. Pentecost is the term I like now for any of those sort of experiences where God pours its power into your life and changes you quickly in a short period of time. So what looks like a long journey is not so long. What looks like a long journey, not so long. Okay, so think of that saying by Jesus. It's one of my very favorite sayings by Jesus because I remember what it was like to live there, and I'm beginning to live in those places again in an authentically Christian way. And you're not tame. You're not tame. You're not as domesticated in that space. And you can understand where people are who are not where you are, and they can only project onto you where they think you are. That's what I've noticed. They see your behavior and think, why would I do that? But they can't understand why you would do it because you're living in the Spirit to a degree they're not. And they might see all kinds of problems that are there. I mean, whatever, of course. I don't even care. I don't care now that I have disorder because it's not even the point in Christianity. Of course there's disorder. What? I mean, of course. What do you mean? You see disorder in me? Duh. I could have told you that. It's not the point. It's this other thing. It's this transcendence. It's this transcendence that God takes us to by participating in God's power, which everyone is, by the way, already participating in. It just comes at deeper and deeper levels. That's all. It just comes in at deeper and deeper levels, more and more intensely. Okay, so that's the little bit on Pentecost. Then this might be the third class I've given on chant. It's more of an announcement / class, and I want people to review to it in the next coming year. Remember this class. I'm using a different computer. I'm sure that it's going to download. So the other one started to fail, too much to use. So because we lost last week's class. So with Jesus' scripture in mind, okay, the wind blows where it will, so too, and no one can tell where it comes from or where it's going. So too is a person born of the Spirit. And I would add, the person born of the Spirit also does not know where they come from or where they're going. It's not a routine. It's a living thing that's flowing through you. Okay? And it's new, and it's our human addiction to order. Human order is so boring to me. Just go in the woods. There's where you see God's order. And it's an order you can't map with math. It's an order you can't level with a level. It's an order that is living and always dynamic and always changing. This is God's order. Our version of order is just, I think, a lot of idolatry and control. That's what I think. God's order is, if you want to see it, just think of billions of years of seasons changing, of life rising and falling. I go to the same place every year in the forest. It looks different every year. Things are changing. This is God's way. Just look. It's everywhere you look. You can't miss it. Then we think order is, we impose a human order on things. I'm not saying it's all bad, I'm glad we're in a building, I wish it was a living building. I wish it was, everything should be art. Everything should be art. But we're just not there yet. We have the money for that when we stop spending money on any war. Then we have the money for everything. For everything. You ever wonder why we don't have enough? It's always that. It's always that. But we won't stop hurting each other. We won't stop competing. So we have to build up armies so all of our resources are wasted on that could be given to living and life and beauty. Okay, so what we're going to start the chanting starting next Wednesday. There's a month of classes starting at 8 at night. Every single person is invited. You don't have to come, but please come, because we want our transition towards our chanting and praying and singing to be smooth. So we're going to do a month of classes, and they might be extremely fruitful classes. I'm not sure, but there's so much to say about it. But if you can come, do come, because the center will change after this. I mean, I got everyone to buy the crystal balls. You probably thought, well, that was nice. What's he doing with those? Well, it's here now. It's time for the singing and chant to happen. We've written some beautiful chants, but we're going to begin it. And there's going to be a month of classes. And I'm going to refer to my notes. I think we will start very simple. Daniel said, because it is a lot. There's like 15 or 20 chants. Eventually, the community will know all of them, and that'll be and we'll make up more. We'll make up more, and they're very sacred and very Christian and beautiful. But chant has a relationship with Pentecost. It just does. Singing and chant, Christian chant, has a relationship with Pentecost. It's a different kind of, it's worship. And it's a different kind of communal experience. And we want it to be sacred, and we want it to be contemplative. And the band has taken this experiment for a while now, and what we notice is it's like God will do anything through us if we'll just get out of the way. But there is the trick. How do you get out of the way? How do you get out of the way and still be there? It's such a paradox. It's like the scriptures. They say the scriptures, how Jesus is fully human and fully divine. Like fully God, fully human. This is Jesus. Not part God, part human. 100% God, 100% human. This is the Christian mystery, and you can't understand Christianity at all until you grasp that. Before that, it's either mumbo jumbo, or it's just like other traditions. But once you grasp who Jesus is, everything changes. Well, the scriptures can also be said to be written 100% by men and 100% by God at the same time. That's why you can taste Paul in Paul. It's why you can feel John in John. The authors were fully themselves. They weren't Eastern mystics. They didn't die to themselves. They died to the egoic self. So if the scriptures are, if Jesus is 100% God, 100% human, and the scriptures could be said to be written 100% by God and 100% by humans, then obviously the goal for sacred chant is for it to be 100% you singing and 100% God coming through you. It's so obvious, isn't it? Like, that's the only pattern. What other pattern could there be? Okay, so, and that means some tricky things, which we've learned in the band and we can shortcut for you. When you sing, okay, I don't want to overdo anything because I don't want anyone gun shy. This is a very tricky conversation. But if you sing, why doesn't it cure cancer? Why? Just why do you think? It's because of two things. How much idolatry is in your voice when you sing, and how much God power is pouring through you when you sing. Idolatry shrinks, God's power increases. Now singing cures cancer. Or changes consciousness or whatever. People have spiritual awakenings while you sing. But only if the self is gone, the false self all the way gone, and God fully present. But it would still be you singing. It would still be just dripping with Raya, even when it's changing people's consciousness. Because God made you, so why would you go? Where would you go? Why would you leave? The problem is, I'm saying Raya, but I don't mean Raya, it doesn't matter. Just this person, this hypothetical person, is idolatrous. They have, they're, worried about how they sound. They're thinking, I don't have a good voice, so I'll sing quiet, so now God can't come through because they're shrinking it. Or they're thinking how great my voice is. Like, whoa, I should be leading this thing, man, because I know what I'm doing. And then that's also killing it. Does that make sense? So then there's something you can sing. And if you sing and it's pure, it doesn't have any other motivations except to either sing to God or to sing to people about God. If that's what you are doing, I can hear the difference in your voice. You might sing the exact same pitch, and there's a difference. Something changes. Something opens up, both in the physicality of it and in the spirituality that comes through. It's different. So our chant and singing must be pure. Pure. You close your eyes, man, just sit before God and sing to God. That's all. But, be you. Don't be, whatever the notion is you have of purity, just burn that. Because, Raya's not going to look like that. It's going to be 100% God and 100% you. So who are you, man? Right? It's almost like I think Michelangelo said it, how do you sculpt these things? And he said, I just cut away everything that isn't the sculpture. Well, that's freaking genius. That's a lot like this path, isn't it? God made something, that good thing is there. That good thing is there. God made it and it's there and it is good. But there's layers of stuff on it. Layers of stuff. If you're used to listening to pop music, you don't know this yet, because that music is literally written by corporations to tap your reptilian brain and release endorphins in your head. Like, you've been manipulated by music your whole life and don't know it. So you wouldn't know purity if it smacked you in the face. In fact, my guess is purity might bug you if you hear it at first. That would be my guess. If you listen to that kind of music and you have your whole life, my guess is if you hear something true, it will bother you. But not because you're immature spiritually. You might be, but I doubt it. But because you've been programmed. It's just, you've been printed on it. It's no one's fault, but you've been printed on it. So so it's not just that you sing, it's that it's pure and true. It's that it's pure and true. That's what matters. That's a quest. That's the same as saying you're going to master internal martial arts. I mean, it's the same as saying you're going to master prayer and enter 7-stage prayer. I mean, it's a journey. It's a journey. But it has to be a journey that really takes you there, not someone else. You, the way you really are. Which means sometimes chant is fierce. Sometimes some people are fierce, so their chant becomes fierce. It means that whatever you are has to be part of it, or it's not real. Or it's not real. It has to be sincere. It has to be innocent. It has to be authentic. It has to be contemplative, which means you're not thinking about what's coming next. You're just right in the moment, doing what you're doing. You're not layers of mind drop, and you're just doing the chant and nothing else. Nothing else. And to get there, you have to become just like this path, which most of you come so far, it's going to be so easy to translate. You have to become a blind beggar to get there. You just have to know that nothing you know means anything or matters. Your voice doesn't matter. Someone could have the most perfectly trained voice on earth, and if they don't have that thing we're talking about, then the person who can't sing at all brings way more power to the group. It just doesn't matter. This worship of whatever that is, they have the best voice, that's worshiping idolatry. That is idolatry. That is idolatry. When we worship that form over and above content, that is idolatry. 100%. It just is. So we give that up. We give that up. And we just say, here I am, man. And if I'm true, to the best of my ability, if I'm true, that is beauty. That is beauty. That's what beauty is. Some bands with terrible voices sing really, really well and bring a lot of power because they're innocent. So what happens if a group of people come together and say, here we are, God. We're going to do this singing and this chanting. And we totally turn it over to you. Like, we want, eventually, for every single thing that happens and every single thing any person in the group does to be completely directed by God. And our experiment is to surrender completely so that that can happen. Then now we're entering into what's closer to God than creativity, I wonder. I mean, not very many things, man. You know, certainly love is further in. But, I mean, just if there was nothing, ex nihilo, right? God created the universe from nothing. If there was literally nothing, not even space, like, right? There's only God, and then there's not even empty space for God to do stuff in because God first made that up. Then creativity is pretty close to God. So then it's like little acts of creativity. They don't have to be amazing, you know. It just what you're doing with your voice and all these instruments we have. It's some magic can happen in that creative act. So what would happen if we just said, God, this is yours. We want to just do your will only. And then see what happens. And we have a little bit of a form to follow. We've got some chants and singing. And then let's just see how that unfolds over the next 15 years together. Because it's a river, you know, it's different every time you get in, you know. So this will be a new thing we add to the center, maybe every week, we don't know yet. It's worship and communion. Worship and communion. And it's celebration. It's celebration. Might be done. Okay. So, it's you know how new things are hard. That's why we're going to start with just a couple of chants, so there's no stress. You know, the band has been exceptionally difficult because not only did we have to learn how to let God come through us, but we also had to learn to play instruments. And we chose to learn how to play by letting God come through us. So it was a really strange experiment, which means it took 8 years before we could play one song. All we could do, we could get where we could jam for 2 hours and do these incredible things. But when we tried to play a song, we would crash on the most simple song because we didn't know how to play yet. But because we learned how to play by letting God play through us. It's a very, very weird approach. But in some ways, I think it's a more true approach. But since music is a little complex and it requires some fair bit of skill, especially for certain instruments, we sucked forever, you know. But this is going to be very simple. Very simple. So that means we can fall into rhythm much quicker. And it can happen much sooner. Because we don't have to do anything very fancy. So then that'll make it very easy to enter into this living thing. So why would we spend any time on it at all? Well, it's the missing piece that I haven't felt like it was time to do. But all along for the last many years, I knew we were going to do it. But I wanted it to be so Christian, and I wanted the New Age and anything anyone else ever did to be gone from people, utterly gone, so that I wanted it to be Christian. I wanted it to be true. So now it seems that we can now do it and it will be true. And it has a relationship with Pentecost. You think nothing's happening to you, and then you're done, and it gets quiet, and you realize you've really entered a very different state of consciousness. A very, very different state of consciousness. And it leads to celebration. It's, you know, the heart of everything is absorption, you know, just trying to get as still as we can and just absorbing God's power, you know. Today for me was totally conscious, just puzzlement. I always feel puzzled. like, it's weird. God's loving me. This is so weird. It's so weird. But, you're absorbing God's love when you're doing that. That's absorption. You're absorbing God's power, right? And that's so much. But there's also celebration and worship and, I don't know, something fierce, something, I don't quite call it celebration. I don't know what you would call it. Something, I can't find the language for it. But it's exuberant and climactic. And there's a certain kind of self-transcendence that comes from it. And you guys will now be a part of this experiment. It's a microcosm for your life. And now in activity, not just in stillness, but in activity, communal activity. And we're going to post every single one of them up on my channel. Just the audio. So it'll be so cool. We'll record every session, man. And then we can listen to them during the week, It'll be really neat. So it's going to be super neat. Okay, I'm going to call that done. Let me stop this.